active in this. And we were seeing here that how the spirits have been trying to push humanity to evolve, grow in love and in our morality. And so, and by us growing and strengthening ourselves, we lift ourselves up. We become more Christ-like. We come closer to God through everything we're learning, how we are applying it. We can go off out into the world today. I've been reading a lot lately with social media, from those that grew up without it to where it was invented. Like Facebook came out early 2000s, having that blow up and be part of our lives, and then finding out that it's creating a lot of damage in its wake, and that maybe we've abused it and have to rein in, and all kinds of stuff has come out of it. And so we're actually learning things because of it. We're also learning that life on social media hurts you in the real world. It's like everyone sits there and texts, but they don't have the conversation. They don't sit and talk to people. They don't read facial features, or they're hiding behind an avatar. And we're seeing that this is a thing. But this is a transition. And that's what part of this is we're growing to. We're evolving, we're learning. And so we have this where we are going to continue to grow and evolve. But the spirits, Kardec, Jesus with Revelations, and then like Divaldo Franco's book, Planetary Transition, is showing us what's to come. They're peeking over the horizon. They're telling us what's on the next level. So if we want to use a phrase, we are leveling up. As the whole planet is leveling up. So now, within the doctrine itself, we have these levels of the worlds. Primitive, trials and atonements, or trials and corrections, regeneration, happy, and heavenly and divine. We are currently at trials and atonements, but we're in the transition phase where we're going to go into a world of regeneration. So when you think of the primitive worlds, that's like you're talking Neanderthals, you're talking like caveman era. It's like quest for fire, and our language was grunts. And then in trials and atonements, we're starting to figure out things. We're learning, we're figuring out sciences and everything else, but we're using it for our immediate needs. So wars, battles, crime, evil still persists because we're all thinking selfishly. We're all thinking we're thinking small. I think everyone here has read the doctrine, at least the gospel and Spirit's book, correct? Anyone here has not? You have not?
I've read some.
Some, okay. So as you read through those books, you'll see that the spirits are really pushing us to think grander. We always think like ourselves, just our individual or our family, but yet when you look at Jesus, he went outside. He left his community. He went out, preached to the Gentiles. He expanded his reach, and he showed that the love grows beyond. I made this comment. I don't know if it was a lecture here or from another center. In the United States, they always have that saying, God, family, country. Or if for the Marines in the audience, God, core, country. But yet, the spirits start talking about, yes, there's God. But then there's humanity. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all family. We just don't realize it yet. With the war in Ukraine and in Israel, sometimes when you go back and you look, you see how things were set up beforehand. And yet, both wars didn't need to happen. If you treated each other as human beings, if you treated each other with a level of respect, instead of thinking of one as an animal or thinking small, thinking selfishly, or if your ego was wounded, and yet you go off and you create all this destruction and chaos, bloodshed. What does it gain? Are you satisfying your selfish needs with the needs for your little group? What about the others? Are you even thinking about the others? That's the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. That's why we should be living that in every way possible. It's not something we can keep pushing and sit there and say, oh, it only applies in this circumstance. No. We need to do it in all circumstances. I mean, I always use roadways because I build roads. So I see people on the road and people get cut off and we cut off others and everything else. Some of us are texting while driving or checking the radio or something like that, not really paying attention. But yet we yell at others for doing that too. Like we may be driving along, actually being mindful of the road, and we see someone swerving all over the road, and we're like, you crazy driver. Like you get mad at them, and then 15 minutes you're doing the same thing. You're fiddling with the knobs, or you're taking a phone call. Next thing you know, you're the one swerving. It's like except for her, since she doesn't drive yet. So we all have our moments where we do these type of things, but also on a consequence. What happens when you not pay attention and you create an incident? Well, it's not just you who's inconvenienced. You block a lane of traffic or two on a road that's meant to push so many cars an hour, and yet it's now reduced down to one lane. So not that many vehicles can get by, so you're inconveniencing everybody in this. That's why I-4 is as beloved as it is. Because we all understand this one. We all want to get somewhere, and all of a sudden we get jammed up for whatever reason. And it inconveniences us. Now some of us, we have to build in that time, but it's still time that we can use for something else, something better. We want to be at our destination so we can indulge in whatever we want to do instead of being sitting there stuck in traffic, wondering when's this next car in front of us going to move. But getting back to this, we've been in this level where we're stuck in traffic. We pay constant, like we do something, but yet there could be a consequence to it. But now we need to get to a spot where we get to things like, yeah, you messed up, but let's move on. And that's where we're going with the world of regeneration. This is the spot where we're not perfect, but now we're kind of like hit the 50-50 mark. We're good and bad in equal measures. We don't have the desire to hurt people. We don't have the desire to really see someone injured. But we don't know, we may be those that are the people that will step on your toes, like learning to dance. They don't mean to. They're learning, but they didn't realize it, and they end up stepping on your toes. But we have to give them the grace and things. We understand that people are learning, people are not perfect. And by that acceptance that I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, none of us are perfect other than Jesus, we can accept that and say, okay, fumbled on this one, we fumbled, but let's learn, grow, and move on. And that's what we're going to go to. This is our next level. We're not at heaven yet. But can you imagine life is like in that spot where, yes, things you may do something wrong, but you'll have the strength within yourself to accept the blame. And he says, yes, you accepted the blame. Let's figure it out. Let's solve it. Or one of these things like the blame doesn't matter. How many of us are in a profession where you come across a problem and everyone wants to point fingers? But then what ends up happening? Somewhere in that group will be the person who says, you know what, screw the blame. Let's focus and find the solution to the problem. Now, let's make that one person that can see through and find that one through. Now let's apply that to everybody. We all learn. We all grow. We don't have to hide our cards because we feel like we're going to be taken advantage of. We acknowledge. It's like we sit there and go and respect each other's boundaries. It's like, yes, you have a job to do. There's things that you can't share with me, like my contractor does the road work. They could probably do it for cheaper. They don't want to tell me because they're using that money for something else, to buy new equipment, to hire new workers, to whatever they want to do. So they're padding their profit margin, and they don't want to let me know how much it is. But I know that already, so I'm accepting that. I was like, yes, you need to make a profit. You need to grow. You need to pay off your employees, and you got to handle the people under your employ. So yes, you have to make a profit. All I ask is that you do the work properly. If you do it properly, on time, we already agreed upon a price. Let's use that price and say, give that to you. Or if it's something that's a problem that's outside of, that you didn't know about, that no one knew about, okay, fine, maybe we have to up the price a little. Now, like I says, we're in that phase. We are already changing. We're seeing people coming into this world to spark ideas, to change our thoughts, to challenge our way of thinking, how we did things in the past, so that we are in the mindset trying to find and get more in tune with the divine plan. Because remember, our goal is that happy divine world, or a heavenly divine world. That's our goal. That's the realm of Jesus. That's his home. We're growing up to him. And now we're saying we're getting to be halfway there. So that's a thought. That's a wonderful thought. So, may I ask what grade you're in?
I'm in 8th.
You're in 8th grade. So you've already transitioned from elementary school to middle school or junior high. Mm-hmm. What did it feel like when you switched out of elementary into the next grade higher?
Well, for me and a lot of people, it was a huge change because it was very different from what we knew, but at the same time it was exciting because we got to meet new people, and in a way, even though it was a little bit hard and kind of nerve-wracking, it was still exciting. It was like a whole new thing to try, so I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And I don't know, were you able to hear her? Okay. And that same experience we're going to experience as a planet level. When you imagine that, when we go to a world of regeneration, we will have graduated elementary school into middle school, junior high. High school may be happy life, and then divine is college. So we're moving on. Like I said, we're leveling up. We're going to the next level. We're leaving. I'll keep with the school analogies. We're putting elementary behind us. So now we are in the middle school. We're in the junior high. So we got to start acting, behaving like middle schoolers, like junior high. There's no more playground at middle school. That was elementary school. Now there's more homework, but you get to choose some of your classes. You get to start choosing your path, what you want to do, when you want to do it. So you're giving more responsibility. You're getting more choices. So that you're sitting here looking at this, and it's like, now, again, what are we doing spiritually? But not just spiritually. As we know, spiritism, the doctrine itself, does not just apply on a spiritual level. It affects us physically, mentally, emotionally. It's tied deeply within us. I mean, our spirit is our core. But yet, everything around us, the planet has its own spirit. Some call it Gaia. We have animals, plants, have life, have vitality. We see that they respond in kind to how we treat them, how they treat us. It's like there's a symbiosis that goes on. And as we get into this regeneration, we're starting to realize just how important that symbiosis is. So we can start making the changes. We can start correcting ourselves so we aren't thinking one-track mind. For recycling, we're closing the loop. How many, you buy a car, it was all these things that went into making the car, all these raw materials, made this car, you have it, you drive it, suddenly it breaks down, it hits its end of its life. What happens to it? Usually ends up in a junkyard, gets pulled apart to pieces, but it's still there. It's not taken apart and become raw materials for something else. But maybe, just maybe, that's part of what we're going to figure out with regeneration. How we can help and heal the wounds. Whatever we've already taken out, find ways to reuse. Take our knowledge and mold it to the improvements that we have. So, going from a lot of the reading we have here, it's like we still have our sensations, we still have our desires. But we won't be, as I mentioned earlier, we won't be shackled by our passions. We won't be slaves to our passions as pride, jealousy, and hate. Because we start accepting our flaws, but we start seeing and finding reasons to help out, to reach out, express our love. And that's part of that third point there with the social relationships. We acknowledge, it's like you are a person. You have value. We may be different. We have different opinions, different points of view. But you are still a person. You deserve respect. You deserve love. Like it says, get rid of the God, family, country. Just have God and humanity. Or God in the world. So we start loving others. We treat others no matter our differences. I love this other one here when I was doing my research. We recognize God. How many of you listen to news or things like this, and you kind of hear about every so often there's an article or research that either tries to prove God or disprove God, and yet they're starting to come up with, especially when people are talking about the world, they're saying how things are so perfectly in tune that the planet Earth, our bodies, everything else are just these wonderful machines that have a layer of precision to it that we as human beings can't even produce yet. We get more and we get better and better. I mean, look at your cell phone compared to where it was 20 years ago, when it was a giant brick and it could only make phone calls, and the battery was in a bag, so it was like you had a big old purse, but that was a phone. And now we have phones so powerful they are essentially computers. They can find anything in a blink of an eye. Research, connect out, reach out, communicate. And we're finding out with all this precision and stuff that this layer of precision, this layer of thing can't come without a cause. What is Spirit's book number 1? What is God? The supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. We know, we sit there and we can look around at our planet and our bodies and everything around us, all the cycles, and see how perfect they all work together. They like the water cycle interacts with the earth cycle, which interacts with the plant cycle. They all work together in conjunction. And it's like, how can you not? And the Spirit's book also mentions it too. It's like, you will recognize the artist from their work. We are the living work. We are the painting, the living painting, the sculpture. And we can acknowledge that the wonderful works that we are has to have a cause. We have to have a creator, an artist of some kind. And the other thing too is darkness won't dominate the light. As I says, we won't have the need for wars anymore. We won't have the hatred. We won't want the vengeance. Because we understand that it's like, someone got hurt, so many other things, but it wasn't intentional. We acknowledge that. We recognize that. So, and then as I was reading through this, it was interesting to see, they were saying like, this book here specifically called it out, and I was hoping to find through some of where they were pulling a lot of their references on, and it pulled from a lot of different references. But one of the things they were talking about was how humanity is going to have its 6th incarnation. And you think of like when you start thinking like usually the Darwin picture comes to mind when you have like the apes like progress into the Homo erectus, which goes to the Neanderthals, the Homo sapiens, and everything else. And they're saying like we're already in the transition. We're changing into a new race that will have our mediumistic faculties right on the surface, easier to access. We'll be more in tune with our emotions. We'll be more in tune with the harmony of around us. We can feel when things are not right. We can sense the vibrations of another being and seeing how will they're like, are you okay? Do you seem to? I feel a bad vibe from you. I'm feeling a little negative energy. Did something happen to you? Do we need to help you out? Do you need a hug? So you weren't around for that one. Religion of love and wisdom. Now, it mentions Christianity and everything else and how Christianity grows, especially with the knowledge of Spiritism. Since it's a reasoned faith, Spiritism always presents this reasoned faith that it should uphold through every epoch. Spiritism was true. The doctrinal teachings was true back in the Middle Ages, which is true back to the Romans, to the Bronze. It's all true up to this day and into the future. It should follow, it should be reasonable, it should be logical. But we'll now understand it. And now we're seeing that as we try to, at least I know for myself, I try to live what I read in the doctrine, with all the moral laws in the Spirit's book, the teachings from the gospel, how we should be mindful and that we should work towards improving ourselves intellectually, morally, so that we bring about this religion of love and wisdom, where we can reunify. Allan Kardec wanted to reunify Christianity, and he ended up coming up with something new. But yet, within that work, doesn't it unify not just Christianity, but it unifies all religions under it? You can see the teachings that are found in Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. They have these underpinnings that are universal. And Spiritism says, yes, they are universal. That's the point. We want to bring those to the fore, because what's true in all of them is true for the universe. And what is that? The love and wisdom, love for others, and the knowledge we have, and how it's growing, and how we how we are the creators within the painting. We are the intelligent here, so we understand the workings within. And we will understand that why this has to be this. Why, when I trip, I fall and not float. We understand the principles behind that. And we'll improve even more. Automation. This one, everyone that's been paying attention in science or technology realizes how much we're pushing AI. And this is one of these things we're saying, like, this may be one of those things that it frees us up from the mundane tasks. When we sit there, have to write a grocery list, and we have to sit there and think about, I need to do this, and I need to do this. Maybe this is something that says, like, hey, you committed to doing this. It's something that's doing it for you, but it frees you up to do something else. An example for us, again, going back to cell phones, is we no longer have telephone operators. We don't have ladies that would sit there and say, how may I direct your call? And then physically connect you. It's all done by computers. It's an automation. Or as some of these cars are so advanced, they help you back up. They have cameras that can see all the way around you so you don't hit anything. Or they warn you if you're following too close and you may crash into them. They warn you and say, back off. So it's helping you to take your mind off some of the smaller details, the more mundane details, so you can focus on the bigger ones. So you can focus in on solving problems, working an idea, working a thought, working on a new creation, or taking two things and combining it in a new way. Spirits from other planets. The reason why I picked this topic again was I was reading this one. It was great for me, and I didn't realize how hard-hitting this one was. Because it starts off, it's two sections, for those that have read it. It starts off with the tsunami in Indonesia back in 2004. Now, I lost a coworker. He went on a honeymoon with his wife and didn't come home because he was in that tsunami. So as I'm reading this book, it's shocking to me to see all these spirits that have come to help to all this destruction on the spiritual side that came to the aid. And in this writing, they tell that the spirits that came were all different persuasions. They were Muslims, they were Hindu, they were Buddhists, they were Spiritists, they were Christians, they were Jews. The spirit communities all around the world came to the aid to help those spirits that were suddenly discarnated by the tsunami. And we see in here all of the pain, the traumas, and everything that went on. The first half of the book talks about it, all the people that didn't realize it, or the exposure of the moral degradation of the area that went on, and how it was exposed, and that the tsunami had a cleansing effect because it shook up the whole world enough that these places of darkness were destroyed to be replaced by something else. And then in the second half of the book, which is where this Alcyone comes in, they start talking about how, specifically in Brazil, it's called out in this book, but I would imagine it's worldwide. Spirits from a more advanced world, one that's already in the world of regeneration, or beyond, maybe they're already in the happy world, is coming back. They're incarnating here. They already have. I use this as a reference. If the tsunami in 2004 happened in 2004, and this book is, it was psychographed in 2010, or it was released in Portuguese in 2010. So somewhere in that time frame, they were born. So let's use 2005. That'll be 20 years next year. So that would put these people from Alcyone, her age, a little bit older. They'll be in college now, or graduating high school. These are the people that will come up and help us. They're probably already bucking the trends, and they're saying, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't seem right. There's a better way. And as they come into their adulthood and everything else, they're going to start working on this world and challenging us that are all stuck to the traditional methods to improve, to grow, or to change our way of thinking. I know for myself, when I was first introduced to Spiritism, some of these principles and things and concepts in here just mind-blowing, rocked my world, changed my whole way of thinking. Put that on a global scale. I remember at a symposium many, many years ago when we were I think it wasn't Brian Weiss. There's another gentleman that was out there, and he was doing a research on spirits. He had a very sensitive machine and everything else, and he was sitting here, and he would have it where the spirits, since they can pass through matter, they could sit there and they can play around. They can be visible to the sensor. And he was Gary Schwartz was his name, Dr. Schwartz. So he was working on this thing, and he started understanding, finding out that, okay, well, let's take the human element. If I know that if I ask, make a writing and everything else, they'll do it. So they started taking things out of the equation to prove it, to prove spirits exist. Totally unrelated to Spiritism. But he's putting it into it. We're starting to see the impacts. Technology, art, philosophy, science, routed through love. Some of us can already see that in effect. When we start going through things, my profession, civil engineering, we do a road closure or we start repairing the roads and everything else, we are taught to think of everyone. If we have a sidewalk, we have to find a way for the people to still go around the work. And then not just any old person. We have to take care of it. We have to think of the blind. We have to think of wheelchairs. We have to think of everyone so they can navigate safely around our work zone with the least amount of additional pain as possible. Because that's the one bad thing with road construction is it's pain. It's always a mess. But then again, as soon as the work is done, we forget about that. How many of us here use the ultimate, the express lanes here on I-4? You use it, yeah. Do you remember when it was under construction and you didn't have it? Or all the stuff that was going on to all the things? It was painful. But yet, now that it's done, we don't think about that. We enjoy that effort. But start thinking other technologies. Like I said, I mentioned AI. But start thinking about philosophy, how the way we think, we start applying it to improve ourselves. And that we doing things like global changes and everything else, thinking of the environment, thinking of the animals. So we're using our mind, we're science, we're putting a love for